Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Seems like I'm always wearing pink or red or whatever, and maybe people think I only have one shirt.
I think people spend a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah.
That's Martha Beck.
I
I'm
only
not
have one
Megan.
shirt.
It's the Gathering Room.
Hello.
Here to discuss Martha Beck only has one shirt. Hashtag
We're a little
conspiracy theory.
high in the shop.
There we go. We are a little high.
No, we're not.
High.
Not at all.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Cindy and
Sandy
Sandy.
and Monica.
And Monica. Hello. Anne and Rachel. Oh, you lovely people.
So
Hi,
many
Kat and
people we
Trisha.
love. How you guys doing?
Jessica and Marianne. Hello, everybody.
How's your week been?
How's it been? It's been
How's your week been?
about a week long.
A week long?
Approximately a week long.
I feel like it's been a week long that's slightly wider than
Yeah.
the average week.
Yeah, it's plump. It was a regular length but chubby week.
Yeah.
I like that in a week.
It's
A lot in there.
There's a lot to be contained within the week.
Yes, it's a week full. A full week of joy.
Yeah.
We didn't have a full week of joy. And now we've got more than 100 people already, so we're going to talk about what to follow when all your rules fail.
Correction.
Mhm.
You're going to talk about it. I'm going to go over there, as is my way. I lurk off camera.
She lurks
while
off camera.
She drops the truth bomb.
She skulks around,
I
getting
do.
me water and
Yes.
such. Okay, so
All right.
here's the deal. We had a friend come over to stay, and this friend had thought of, was praying in a certain way, and called their spiritual leader to find out if it was okay to pray that way. Was that inside the rules? And we got into a discussion about if there are any rules about how you need to do anything, especially pray. If you're a praying kind of person, if you're not, then rules about how to do anything. Are any rules necessary? And I kept pointing at the forest outside and saying, there's not a tree out there in the forest that ever followed a rule. There's not a fox or a deer out there that ever thinks about the rules. We're the only creatures in creation that think about rules. Do you think we're really that we've come up with something that is unalterably necessary and there's only one species that we know of that ever uses them? I mean, rules are ridiculous. So this person who was with us was a rule following type. I myself am not a rule following type. So I've been pondering on this, and I thought, here's the problem. When I was being raised all Mormon and whatnot, they gave me lots of rules, and I followed all of them. I'm one of the people who can say, you know what, I actually tried it. A lot of people are like, oh, I broke that one rule, so the rules are probably right, and I'm wrong. But I kept every single rule. I mean, I could keep a rule. And I thought I was going to be happy. I thought I was going to be at peace because of that. And when I wasn't, I just kept piling on more rules, and it never amounted to much in my childhood. So then I thought, aha, there are no rules. And I've been living that way for a while. But when you think about it, you can't really do without any rules. Because, for example, if you went out driving in a city somewhere and everyone was breaking all the rules, you would not have an orderly, survivable society. You would have, say, Bangkok. That's how they drive in Bangkok. Sorry, anybody in Thailand. I do apologize if that felt insulting. That was my experience of traffic in Bangkok. So you need traffic rules. You need certain rules of how to behave around other people, or everything would go completely skiwampus. But then this week I was also driving in sleet. It got sleety. And I was thinking about a time when I was driving a car with very bald tires. It was a small car with bald tires. And it was on a sleeting day. And there was a very thin film of watery ice on the road. And I turned downhill while accelerating. That is not a good idea. There's a reason they tell you not to. The car hydroplaned, which means it left the road, and the tires were actually floating on the layer of sleet. And I just started going down the hill like someone kind of on a random sled. It was just like, oh. And I realized as I went down the hill with the car going sideways and crossing lanes and doing all these things, it wasn't going very fast, but I had no control of the car whatsoever. And I thought, because it's amazing how clearly you can think at times like that, I thought, the laws of traffic are no longer followable for me. The laws of physics have taken over. And I just need to abandon my person mind and get back in touch with the laws of physics. And I don't know how I knew this. I think it's something that happens to you in an emergency, where somehow my calculating mind said, I am not up for this job, and went ka-chunk, and it turned off. And there was my fight or flight response. Only it was in that, when you're really in a dangerous situation, the interesting thing, if you follow Gavin de Becker, who wrote the Gift of Fear, he's an expert on violence, and he's fascinating. And one of the things he says is that when you're truly in danger, it's a calm, like real helpful fear is a calm impetus to action. It actually tells you what to do instead of paralyzing you. So I must have been really afraid, but it felt calm. And I thought, I can't think this thing through, and there's no traffic law that's going to help me. So I need to go somewhere else. And what happened was everything went very quiet, and my body in the car started to feel for the sense of how the machine was moving and how the road was conditioned and everything. And in this strange way, I felt myself becoming the car, and I could feel its loss of grip on the road, and I could feel the temperature. I could feel all these things. And I sort of, it was the strangest thing. It's not like I willed the car to do anything special, but it was like my will and my understanding of physics became the same thing. And as the car, I pushed myself sideways. And the car went sideways. And I don't know if that was just the way the slope was going or whatever, but it was this weird sense that my consciousness and the car were now in the same body. I had stopped being just this, and I was now sensing my tires and my bumper and all that. And I just pushed myself off to the side of the road. And so I funked against a gutter there and just sat there breathing. And then I got the rush of adrenaline. I was, and somehow miraculously, traffic had opened up around me, and I hadn't been squished. But that experience stayed with me, because there was I need rules for the traffic to work. Then there was my human rules are gone. The laws of physics are taking over. And then there was an experience that, from my understanding, transcended the laws of physics. And I became one with a different consciousness. So this is what I wanted to tell you about today. That we sat, while my friend was visiting, we sat there going, okay, if you say there are no rules and that we should all follow nature, doesn't that give every alcoholic a free license to just drink and drink and drink? Doesn't it give every murderer free reign to murder and murder? There are no rules, just murder who you want. There have to be some rules, but the fact is we have to acknowledge that any rule we make for living is fallible and possibly wrong. Like there used to be a whole lot of rules. Slaves obey your masters is a rule in the New Testament. I don't agree with that rule anymore. Turns out we sort of evolved beyond it. That rule doesn't work for me as an individual. I don't think it works for many societies. There are still societies where they do it. But I think that we now have a rule that says slavery is wrong. Let us end it, and everything connected to it. So we've switched rules. So we still need the rules, but we have to acknowledge that there's this paradox in rules. They have to be rigid to hold us in place, but they have to be flexible to reflect our evolving knowledge and our evolving consciousness. When that happens, when you can let yourself be completely flexible and you follow the rigid rule and to the point where it no longer works for you, and then you let it go, then the consciousness arises from which something wiser is emerging. And this you can follow. I was just thinking about another friend of mine who had a car accident. I may have told you about this one already because it was very strange. She was driving through an intersection, and someone who was high on crystal meth came through the intersection at 70 miles an hour and did not even tap his brakes, just hit her car, which was an SUV, which went up in the air and spun and tumbled so that it literally collapsed all 6 sides of the cube. The car was completely crushed. Like, people who came to get her out of it could not believe she survived. In fact, she not only survived, she walked away without a scratch. But the weirdest thing was that, same as with me, when she felt, she saw the car just before it hit her, and she managed to turn the steering wheel just slightly. And that's what kept it from being even more devastating. But she grabbed the steering wheel tightly with both hands, and she remembers that very vividly. So she turned, it hit her, her car went, blah, 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 blah. It came to rest on its roof, and she was hanging upside down from the seatbelt. But in her hand was her cell phone. Now, there was no time between grabbing with both hands the steering wheel and the car tumbling in all these directions. Her cell phone was not in her hand. In that chaos, somehow her hand grabbed her phone as it went by. She doesn't remember doing it. She doesn't remember thinking about it. All she remembers is everything went very quiet inside her, and she thought, oh, this is what it's like when you die. This is, oh, well, this is interesting. It's not nearly as scary as I thought. And that seemed to go on forever. In the meantime, in the physical world, all this chaos was ensuing, but somehow the cell phone got to the hand. That's another example of the rules failed. She let go. And while the rules of physics seemed to make her life spin out of control, some thing that is beyond physics put her phone in her hand, and she was able to call her husband right away and get her out of the situation. So I started to think about, when, for all you guys out there, I know, because sometimes, we'll read the comments after we finish the gathering room, or we hear from people on email or something, and the rules of your family are breaking down. Right now I'm coaching someone for Oprah Magazine where all the rules for her life have broken. She doesn't know what to do. So since it's in a magazine, I'm sure she wouldn't mind if I told you. Her husband of many years, with whom she has, I think, 3 children, is transgender. And she told my client about this just recently. And my client is completely sympathetic with her husband's position, but still doesn't know how to function in her own life now that she found out that he's a she. So there's no animosity, but there's complete chaos. It feels like one of the most fundamental rules of her life has been broken. The man she thought she was married to is actually a woman. So that doesn't go with anything she was taught growing up. It is consistent with what society is learning as we become more, as we allow. It's one of our, I think, steps toward more illumination, just like no slavery. It's like, okay, no slavery to gender either. Okay, yes, let's not suppress people that way either. But she's in this place where, boom, it's the middle of the car wreck, and she's tumbling through the air, and she doesn't know what's going to catch her. And I don't know what's going to catch her. But I remember that stillness that came over me when that car hydroplaned. And it's happened to me before and several times since, when the rules of my life broke down to the extent that I sat back and went, okay, let's just see, as my friend this week said, let's see how God handles this. And there's this complete stillness that comes, and then a miracle sometimes occurs. I was thinking about how one of the rules of nature seems to be, if you get a certain type of glass lens and you make it a certain curvature, and it's very clear, and you put it in a tube and you look through it, say at the planet Saturn, you will see that Saturn has rings around it. And you can't see the rings. Not everyone can see the rings with the naked eye, but if you do put it through this particular telescope, you will see that Saturn has rings. By the same token, if you sit very quietly and focus on a thought like I am for a very long time, people of all faiths in all geographic regions and all cultures will tell you, you stumble over a no-thingness that is loving, divine, and somehow essential, deeper than any other thing. And it is home. And you will feel that sense of homecoming. And so this seems to be a law of nature. So when you bring together the traffic accident that is your life coming apart at the hinges, I think using that law of nature, going still, it's what happened to me instinctively during the car accident. It's what happened to my friend instinctively during the car accident. It was not a retrenchment to any rules of humans. No rules of humans can handle it when things really crash. But if you get still enough, that no-thingness comes forward and it can take the wheel. So I thought, well, what's the takeaway from this? Which I will tell you now, and then I'll answer some questions. I thought, here's the deal. If you've broken rules in your life, forgive yourself right now, because no set of rules is absolute. No set of rules is enough. No set of rules is absolutely right. And no set of rules ultimately works for any individual. The rules are a rough sketch of what your life's supposed to be. So if you've broken some and you feel bad about it, stop feeling so bad. Also, don't enslave yourself to any set of rules. Be very, very flexible. And by that, I mean ready to let go of any rule at any time. Any rule at any time. Think about my client. She's such a huge heart and such a vast spirit. She's so loving. And she's had to open her heart to the rules of her marriage changing completely. And by God, she's doing it, but it's requiring so much flexibility and courage. It takes so much courage to let go and forgive and be flexible at a time when things are crashing. And then the only thing left to do is be ready. So my team at my company, we met in California about a month or two ago, and we were talking about what's our corporate mission statement for the year. And we asked everybody what their individual mission statements were, and everybody kind of went, I don't really have a goal, but it feels like I need to be ready. And all of us just kind of went, oh, we need to be ready. We need to be ready. And we all felt very strongly that we needed to be ready. And then we asked, be ready for what? And nobody knew. But that's the thing about being ready. If you're ready for something specific, you're always going to get too clenched up and you won't actually be ready for it. Only a position of openness and relaxation allows you to be ready enough so that when the thing happens, whether it's the car accident or the marriage going strange or something wonderful like falling in love, it can still feel like a car accident. It messes up your whole life, an unexpected pregnancy, whatever it is. It can be a joyful, wonderful car crash and just take all the rules away from you. And if you have a loose enough hold on the steering wheel and you're ready to totally relax, then you're ready for the no thing to step into your consciousness and become one with the consciousness of the whole scenario. Become one with the consciousness of the cell phone going into the hand or the car being pushed, it felt like by the mind, toward the side of the street. So it's an experience. I kind of hope you have an experience. I kind of hope you don't have, because it's a little scary. But when you get to that place where the no thing steps in and the consciousness expands, it's awesome. So that's what I have to say about that. If rules are failing you now, relax, forgive yourself, and be ready. And what questions do we have, Rowan Mangan? Oh, notorious badger.
Let me slide back into the chair and I will tell you.
The chair of badger power.
That's right, the Badger Power Chair, now available online through easy payments. Badger Power Chair. Okay, so I just get back in shot and I get everything set up just right. Just right. So Pam asked, is this concept related to a previous discussion where you said that if we're completely honest, our true self cannot lead us in the wrong direction?
Yeah. Absolutely. And truly honest is, Nisargadatta Maharaj says, the only true statement the mind can ever make is, I do not know. Because anything the mind tries to grasp is actually, your perceptions could be wrong. You could be dreaming. The mind can twist anything. So the mind, it really, at its most truthful, just says, I don't know. At which point you're left with something deeper than your intellect, and you fall back on the laws of nature and the laws of the no-thingness, and boom, you're there again.
Anne says, how can you invite someone to look at a rigid rule that's no longer serving them?
You have to let them crash, I think. I mean, you can shout and scream all day at people. Your rigidity is going to destroy you, and it will make them, and this is statistically proven. I mean, they do all these political opinion surveys. People who are very rigid in their views, if you show them dead to rights evidence that their view is factually incorrect, like fossil fuels really do come from the ground or whatever they think, even if science and all the angels tell them differently, the more strongly the evidence disproves their belief, the stronger their belief becomes. The stronger their belief becomes. So trying to push someone out of a rigid rule makes it more rigid. So what you do is you just fade back into the laws of nature yourself and watch, because if they're following a very rigid rule, it will fail. So you can just kind of sit there and go, tick, 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 because it's going to explode. That sounds vengeful. It's not vengeful. It's just the only thing I know to do.
Works for me. Marianne says, how do we raise children to see that some rules are here to keep them safe, but that it's also important to challenge and think beyond the rules and be curious, because this is where creativity often lies, beyond the rules?
I think you would say, here's the way I do it. Can you think of a better way? And say that all the time. I teach all my coaches, one of the very first things our coaches know, and a lot of you are coaches, is that you tell your client your opinion about something. Like, it seems to me, like I would say to my client that I'm coaching right now. So it seems to me that you feel very upset, like not rocket science, right? And then I say, tell me where I'm wrong. Is your experience, am I correctly assessing your experience? And I've had people say, how could you possibly tell? How could you say that? That subverts your own authority. And how could you have other people say it? That's not respecting them to have them say, tell me where I'm wrong. But I believe that it's the fundamental truth of language, is that it's never the entirety of what's right or what's accurate. So it's an act of humility and honesty and integrity to always say, am I wrong about that? Now, I wouldn't say that to a child at any time. I was driving a child one day, and the child was playing with the gear shift. And I said to him, you grab that gear shift one more time and you're walking. And I'm not even kidding. And he knew I was serious, and he stopped touching the gear shift. I was telling him, follow the laws of nature, and this is a law in this car. And there are times when, and that's what rules are good for. They really are. There's this scene in Little House in the Big Woods, which was the prequel to Little House on the Prairie, where they're living in the big woods. And one day, Laura Ingalls Wilder's father comes home, and all the girls are little. They're like 1, 2, 3, 4 or something. And their father comes running into their little tiny cabin in the big woods in the middle of winter. And he's like, under the beds, don't move, don't make a sound now. And then he slams the door and goes out. They all get under the beds. They go absolutely silent. And a pack of wolves comes and surrounds the house. And the father is out there with his gun, trying to make sure they don't get through any window or any door. And you understand at a very profound level why people were taught to obey their parents, right? But that's really different from saying, there's too much indignation in that video game you're playing. So why don't you just back it off and give up screens altogether, whatever. There's a big difference between the rule that says the wolves are coming and the rule that says there may be GMO modified corn flour in that tortilla or whatever. What was I talking about? Yes, about how to teach children. But when you're with a child in a state of play or in a state of learning, especially when you're teaching them something about the world, say, where am I wrong? Can you find a place where I'm wrong? And that will always teach them that even a grown-up, even authority systems should be questioned, should be examined, that they never need to give up individual, their intellect, their intelligence, their intuition, their emotion. It's all valid. And you do it by being humble with them. Yes.
That's wise words.
Unless there are wolves.
Yeah.
Then you scream.
Just scream. It's only natural. That's what your true self wants to do. Judith says, I'm fine with breaking certain rules, but there is generally a cost in the form of people who are absolutely shocked and unsure if anybody stops obeying those rules. How to deal with that in patience and love?
Well, I think you just have to hold the course. Lord knows I've done that a few thousand times. And a lot of the people who were shocked by my breakage of rules couldn't handle it. And they were like, or that's a judgmental way to say it. They did not like it. They did not agree with me. And they may be right. I don't know. But I felt like I was doing what was right for me. So you're going to, sometimes people will drop off as you obey your deepest truth. But the law of the no-thingness is also drawing to you the situations and individuals who will most resonate with your particular fractal, with that form. So part of forgiving yourself and being ready to let go is forgiving yourself for having offended people and letting go of the people who are offended when you live your truth. And that's something you have to do continuously throughout your life. It's interesting because I used to think there are a lot of studies showing that people who have continued contact with their families of origin through life, very close contact, have better mental and physical health. And then I was like, oh, that's not me. And then I asked a therapist once, and the therapist said, maybe the causality is backwards. They are healthy and happy because they have the kind of families that go with them on their journey through life instead of going, how dare you? So instead of that, like if you don't have a group of friends and loved ones who are going with you, then you have this radical flexibility in your relationship life where you realize that everyone is a portion of your own consciousness, that love is eternal, that you can't ultimately lose anyone, and that continuous transformation and change means that love relationships are always changing. You may choose the right person to marry, and then later
they're not the right person.
They're not the right person, and then somebody else is the right person, and you never know. That's how it works, but it's all good. So one of the rules that you can break is everything has to be the same all the time.
Oh, must break that one.
Yeah. So do we have another question?
Oh, yes, we do.
Oh, excellent.
Marsha says, Oprah used to say, listen before the brick falls on your head. So do the rules break apart because we haven't listened?
I think so, yeah. I think that you generally get a lot of, Oprah used to talk about, first you get a whisper, little voice in your ear going, that's not going to work. And then it becomes, I think she said, a message, which is like someone tapping you going, hey, that's really not going to work. Then it becomes a lesson. Hey, this is not working. Then it becomes a problem. Oh my goodness, the car is hydroplaning. And then it becomes a crisis. Oh my gosh, now the car is mangled on all four sides. And if you listen at the whispers stage and learn to listen very closely, then you get out of the way before the catastrophe. So my motto is, and I was telling this to our friend this week, cave early. So life is trying to get you to cave in and give up your rigid rules and expectations. The earlier you cave, the less you suffer. I'm just saying.
I love that.
Whatever's trying to tell you, no, don't do that. Don't keep that rule anymore. It's not going to work for you. Cave now. Let this be the day you just go, oh, I hear that. And I'm not going to wait for a problem or even a lesson. I'm just out of here.
Yeah. Okay. Alexa says, Martha, how do you move past rules you developed to survive, such as not trusting others, especially when it's so automatic?
Yeah, you have to become the wisdom that is watching the one who is harmed. So every time you have a trauma, the part of you that's in trauma forms rules about how to not let that happen again. And those rules can keep you safe and they can ruin your freaking life. You know, if you don't trust anyone in a bad place, you're safe. If you don't trust anyone for the rest of your life, you are in solitary confinement and it doesn't work. So what happens is you have to learn to look with a different part of yourself at the part that was traumatized. So and I call it the compassionate witness. And this is part of sitting quietly and saying, I am, one of the things that happens is you start to realize that you're not your trauma and that you're bigger than your trauma. And you know that because you can talk about your trauma. You don't just have to talk from inside it. The moment you can talk about it, there's a part of you that's watching it. And that part of you, as it describes the part that's traumatized, gains more individuality. And then you can say from that wiser perspective, wow, I really get why you don't trust anyone. I understand that that's an outgrowth of trauma. You can trust me. And then you become a very trustworthy person to the part of you that was traumatized. You're kind, you're forgiving, you're open, you're flexible. All of this stuff helps you be a better person to hold the aspects of yourself that are rigid in trauma, because rigid rules and rigid rule keeping are very intermingled with trauma. So as you get looser about keeping rules, you also get looser about being locked in trauma. And when you can be the love that has no need for rules, but will always be present, then the trauma part can start to thaw. And that's a law of nature. It thaws like ice melting in the spring, and you can't force it, but you can encourage, you can create a system, create an environment that will cause it to happen for sure. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
I was shouting and shouting for a while. It's because I feel so adamantly that you should not do what I say. So we love you very much, and we hope you come to our next gathering room.
We see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.